What's going on, guys? Rock Lee AC here, back with another deck profile. Today, we brought back the Crit God himself, the Masked Saiyan. We'll be featuring a couple of the new cards from the draft box set, and wanted to give a new perspective on this leader. So for those who don't know, let's take a look at the leader itself. Black Masked Saiyan. Activate main once per turn. Place the top 3 cards from the top of your deck in the drop area. If you place a black card in the drop, this gains critical for the duration of the turn. And if a card or any other card is placed in the drop area that's not black, it gets another plus 5k when you flip this card over. Draw 2, and he becomes Bardock Unleashed by Darkness. Activate main, same thing, mill 3, crit for black, any other color 5k, and then when you attack, you draw a card. So this deck, at least this version, is actually a mono black deck. The reason why I wanted experience with that, because there are a couple of cards in here that work with a mono black leader / energy. So we are going to explore that. The good things about Masked Saiyan, this is essentially built for like a best of 1 format. I mean, you could have like a best of 3, but I just don't think it's as competitive. But I definitely think it's fun. Some good things about this leader is that it applies crit damage early game, so you can just apply crit with the early pressure with his ability, and a lot of other cards in here do crit as well. It's potentially like a turn 4 kill because you have a lot of damage being pumped out and a lot of multiple attackers per turn, and you have some really good cards in here. It's a unique engine that I put in here to fit with the leader. Obviously, there are some bad sides about Masked Saiyan. You know, his hand size isn't the best. He doesn't really have a lot of draw power, and he doesn't do too well against a super defensive control build. There's a lot of RNG, but we'll take a look and we will see the cards for this deck, and let's get started with that. So he doesn't play a lot of defense cards, but I do run one of the new cards too, Petrification. So this is a card that is a counterattack. If your leader card is black, negate the attack, and you may choose 1 card from your hand and place it in your drop area. If you placed a card in the drop area, you could pick a battle card, ignoring barrier, and it can't attack, be placed in the combo area, or activate skills till the end of your next turn. So this is really good against those super aggro decks that put in play also multiple cards per turn, Raider's Warcry, the Majin Buu deck, dual attackers and all that stuff. So it's really good to stop that so that you could return the damage back on the crackback. So those are the only main defense cards that you play. The rest are obviously more aggressive cards. So for the super combos, I run a 2-2 split of Bibbidi and Supreme Kai. Supreme Kai obviously becomes active once you have 5 cards in the warp, which is very easy in this deck. So that is your early way of getting card advantage or applying pressure early with certain cards. And then Bibbidi, he becomes really strong later in the game. This counts as the cards in your drop area and warp. And since you're trying to warp every single turn, this super combo just gets more powerful quickly, more quicker than others because you're milling off the top 3 cards of your deck. Next are the pseudo super combos, I call them, the IARs. This one is for the black leaders. 15k power, which is super strong. You get attach that to the crit. You know, if all your energy is black, you get to pick a card that's 4 or less costs in your opponent's drop area and send it to the warp. That's very relevant because there are cards that you go against, such as like hand control decks that put in the Great Ape or like Ribrianne, things like that. You don't want your opponent to have such a large hand size, so you want to minimize your opponent's chances of being able to use those cards. So that's very strong, and it fits well with the theme. Another good card for this deck is a Cracked in Spacetime. If your leader card is black, the leader card gets plus 15k and double strike. So that's super strong too. If you want to open up with this, if you're on the draw, you could use this card to go in all in the beginning and do a double strike crit if you want. And it just applies a lot of pressure early game, and if your opponent can't stop that early, they're going to be losing hand advantage. Next, I run 3 double strike Champas. This again puts pressure with your overwhelm cards that you use with crit. So just being able to damage your opponent maybe 2 cards from their life to the drop zone early, again, is really, really powerful with this deck. Since this is mostly a mono black deck, you need a ways to self-awaken. So I play 4 Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan. When you swing, you get to take a life, it gets 15k. And then the top effect is also powerful too if your opponent wants to put in free play drops like Jirins or Keflas or whatever ways your opponent wants to cheat in cards that are 15k or less. Not so relevant so much right now, but like different decks, like rogue decks, you could definitely apply pressure. Your opponent has to drop 2 cards from their hand. But all in all, it is a option to help self-awaken against decks that don't really do much early game. Next is a card that a lot of people haven't seen lately, is Increasing Evil Mass Saiyan. He is also another self-awakener, Overwhelm 4 for 1 energy. When you play this card, you get to send a battle card that's 5 cost or less to the warp, and then you could put this in play for free. And when you play it, you get to take a life. So it's 20k. You get rid of a card from your opponent's side. Energy cost 5 or less, send it to the warp. So it's good for board removal, blockers, anything annoying early game if they don't have barrier on them. Now onto the more of the crit cards engine for Mira. He's a simple free energy cost, overwhelm for 4, 20k critical, very, very powerful. Combine that with a Champa for double strike. It applies a lot of pressure. Next, I run 3 Vegeta. He's a cheap cost, 3 Overwhelm, 15k critical. And then when you play it with Overwhelm, you get to mill the top 3 if you want. It could help you for your next turn to set up for other large plays if you want to abuse that. Otherwise, he's like a nice cheap cost for 3. Early game, it's really powerful. Next is 2 Bardock Awakened Instincts. This helps you cycle. I could definitely see you running more of this if you want. But it's your nice draw 2, pitch 1, Overwhelm. Just going through your decks. It's very strong with the 20k also attached to it. And then the classic Scientist Fu. He's like your nice way to get cards. You don't really plus so much or draw so much in this deck, so you need ways to draw. Scientist Fu, he is a little bit hefty cost, but the Overwhelm, you could fix that with your IARs milling up to 4, or your Vegeta milling up to 3, or your leader milling up to 3. You could definitely reach that pretty easily in this deck. And 25k double strike, maybe knocking them down from 5 life to 3 life, is very doable during turn 2, turn 3. And then the engine that I'm running is the famous Power Ranger engine. So because of this deck has a lot of RNG, you need to run 4 of each of these cards. This is the alternate way to beat your opponent is through the Power Rangers. So the Catapesla Universe 3, you search the top 7 for a Catapesla card, Universe 3 card essentially, and put it to your hand. So that is a very important card you want to see in the beginning. EX Evolve for 1 goes into Sonic Justice. So he is a dual attack barrier. For 1 energy, you could also negate an opponent's attack and then negate that effect for the rest of the turn if you want to be defensive. So if you have an option to bring out the 1-drop, evolve into 4-drop, and then later on saving there just to make sure that the barrier sticks on there, is a smarter play. So you don't want to go up the engine unless you have, a couple of those cards in your hand. Next is the EX Evolve into the 5-drop. So for 2 energy, could be random. He is a double strike critical. When you play this card, you also draw a card, then choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and send it to its warp. It's a lot of board removal. This deck does a lot with that. Anything except for barrier, of course, which is a little bit difficult for some of the cards in here for the energy cost. But 25k double striker crit on top of all your other Overwhelm crit cards is very powerful. And then the last to finish off is the 6-drop, the EX Evolve for 1. Critical, double strike, dual attack, barrier, very hard to get rid of. When this card evolves into the card, you switch it to active mode. So when you swing with that, double strike, then you could evolve for 1 to restand it, and then gets another 2 attacks. So that is the main board. Basically, you want to rush your opponent and then finish them off with the Power Ranger engine. So there are some cards that you could consider for the deck. Maybe for sideboard or maybe on your matchups or something like that. It really depends on your locals and what you got. Haru is a very strong card, especially now with all the Surge decks, Surge leaders, Jiren, all that stuff. Green or yellow, you get to untap, and it becomes a crit card, so it just fits with a theme. Next is Shin, one of the new cards. Very cool card. You get to draw a card, so it's a nice replacement. And then it prevents your opponent from attacking with 7 costs or more. So some of the successor stuff, some of like the Strength of Legends, Goku, anything large enough that's 7 costs or more kind of saves you a turn from there. Next is Dabura. He's like a light counterplay in a way, so you could basically pay for 2 since your leader is black. And then he's really strong because he stops a lot of your opponent's attacks as well. Just being able to choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it can be attack or activate skills. The activating skills part is also very important too, so that's kind of could save you more so than like just preventing an opponent from attacking. Bardock, fully unleashed. Another great card against like successor, some of the SCRs like Black Smoke, like rival cards like the green yellow Broly, stuff like that. Super strong if you need it. Next, Desperate Onslaught Bardock. He's like a tech card against like blockers, like Jiren blockers, or stuff that you have a lot in the board you can't combo. And again, fits with the critical theme. Banisher Fu, if you feel like you already don't have enough stuff with that could kill or warp cards, he's definitely there for that option. And not that you'd really need it or really play it. It is a hefty cost, Demonic Absorption. It just selects a card with barriers. So if you need it against those certain matchups that go grindy, it's really strong. So basically, the point of the deck is to pressure your opponent early, Mass Saiyan. If you're on the play, you kind of want to search for your Kutapetsla 1-drop, my apologies, or the Black Mass Saiyan, so you could have a turn 1 play, then evolve and use your Overwhelm energy and all that stuff. And if you're on the draw, you want to look for your Mirror crits or your Vegeta, stuff that crits and everything, and that you could have, or like a Kraken Space-Time that you could use, so that when you're on the draw, it's your turn, you could swing for them for that crit energy and all that. But yeah, I think it has some good matchups, like some of the multicolor decks that want to charge it early, like Surge, Self-Awakened decks like Jiren and SS3 Reboot, stuff that like want to take an advantage by taking their life. You could pressure them by denying that ability and that resource. And it's very good in the best of one, which is really what I built this for, so that certain matchups you could just pretty much easily come over. It does have some bad matchups like Hand Control, Piccolo Surge, Hatchiyak, where you can only attack with like 1 battle card, stuff like Nimbus and Bean and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a super fun deck. Again, like I said, do I think it's competitive? No, but I think it's absolutely fun and something that you could bring to your locals, or something that you guys could build upon as a shell to improve. Again, the point of this was to explore new options, such as the Power Rangers draft box cards and some of the IRAs and the all black cards. So hope you guys enjoy this. Different take on Mass Saiyan. Rate, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.